Hello, welcome back to Saturn Sirens. Today we're going to be talking about the North Nodes, but I just want to go over a few things. We started a Discord, so it's only me and Mary in there right now, but it's called Saturn Sirens. So join the Discord because we want to build up a community of people who love to talk about astrology, and we'll talk about things that we're going to discuss in the podcast and things we have discussed and want to discuss in the future. So that'll be really fun. And also, we have these episodes uploaded on Spotify, but also YouTube. So if you know anybody who doesn't have Spotify, you can show them the podcast through YouTube, and that's all.
It's Sticks and Stones Astrology, right?
Yes, Sticks and Stones Astrology is my YouTube channel where I have the episodes uploaded.
Cool. So check us out, guys. Welcome back. And we're talking about the nodal shift that's about to happen on the 17th. The North Node is about to move into Aries from Taurus, where it's been for about the last couple of years. So it's going to be a major shift that we basically all feel. And the focus is shifting to relationships versus independence. So it's going to be the biggest deal if you have your natal North Node in Aries in your birth chart, or if you have Aries placements or even Libra placements. So if you have your Aries North Node or your North Node in Aries, you're basically having your nodal return, and it's basically a time when the universe kind of shifts things in order to align you to your soul's purpose. If you have your North Node in Libra, you're going to be having your reversal. So it's an interesting time when the past version of you meets the future version of you, which I think you were actually just going through this, weren't you?
Yes, so I have my North Node in Scorpio and my South Node in Taurus. So the North Node's been in Taurus and the South Node's been in Scorpio, and it's been really interesting. I've been thinking about the last couple of years, and I just got into astrology about 6 or 7 months ago. So the last little bit of this nodal reversal season, I've known about astrology, but the majority of it, I had no idea. But I really do feel like, so it was transiting my 12th house where I have my moon, my Venus, my North Node, and Pluto. So when it was doing that, I look back to January 2022. I broke my elbow, and I just went through this period of time where I just started reaching out to people who I knew I was on bad terms with, and even people that I felt resentment towards. I just wanted to reach out and apologize to them for my part in it. And I even read the whole Old Testament. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of just old wounds resurfaced, and I had to work through them. And now I'm moving forward in this next nodal season into it transiting my fifth and 11th house. And it's interesting because Libra is my midheaven. So the South Node's going to be transiting my midheaven, which is, I don't know what that means, but it sounds interesting.
Well, I would think it would mean that you're focusing more on your creative self expression, your hobbies, and letting yourself shine and kind of be in the spotlight with the fifth house, as
Right.
opposed to enmeshing yourself with your friends and kind of focusing too much on your career and just really not developing your individuality with the South Node transiting your 11th.
And also, with the nodal reversal, it kind of kickstarts your Saturn return when you're in your
Yep.
late 20s.
Yeah, so typically it's pretty intense. It brings up all of your wounds, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So the South Node basically are the habits that you're overdeveloped in, and they kind of self sabotage, or you self sabotage when you're in your South Node energy. So it basically brings all of that up in order for you to heal it and move forward and step into your North Node energy. So the baggage and the toxic stuff can't come with you. And that's what the nodal reversal does. It forces you to confront those behaviors and habits that are no longer serving you so that you can release them
So
and then
interesting.
embody your North Node. So it's pretty interesting. I feel like, I want to talk a little bit about how it's going to affect us as a collective.
Mhm.
Obviously, not all of us have our North or South Node in Libra natally. However, you do have Aries and Libra somewhere in your chart. So definitely look at your natal chart, and the area of life where the nodes will be transiting is going to be key at telling you what to kind of expect with this nodal change. So it's going to be a big deal too because the node has been in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and it's moving to Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So Venus and Mars are kind of opposing energies.
Mm.
Venus is more of a receptive, laid back type of energy, whereas Mars is more of an initiative, acting type of energy. So, it's kind of the difference between feminine and masculine energy, meaning feminine is more receptive and masculine is putting forth energy into the world. So, I feel like lots of us are going to basically be feeling like we want to act, we want to do things, and we're finally going to have that motivation to just go for what we want. So, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, you were saying that you think a lot of divorces are going to happen.
Well, I do because the Aries Libra axis is about relationships,
Hmm.
whereas Libra is about actual relationships. It's ruled by Venus. Aries is about the self, the first house. And Aries is a very, self focused energy. It's about putting yourself first. So, whenever the South Node is in a Venus ruled sign like Libra, typically we see lots of divorces. And people just have the urge or the itch to be independent and to kind of, if you're not happy in your relationship, more than likely it's definitely not going to last through this transit, I would say. But that's my prediction.
But like it
Lots
would
of other
probably be
astrologers.
unhealthy relationships and not stable, healthy relationships for the most part, I would
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah. So, like, if you have a stable, healthy relationship, I feel like, it would get deeper during this transit. But if your relationship is like hanging by a thread, it's more than likely not going to make it. But it's a
Which is for
good
your
thing, though.
benefit,
You just have to
yeah.
trust. It's a good thing, I would say. So we'll see what happens, but obviously we're all in this together. The node affects us as a collective, and it's like where the collective shift goes. But I kind of want to talk a little bit too about the North Node in your natal chart. It's a pretty big deal, and it's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing to understand in your natal chart because it represents the purpose that your soul chose to have this human experience. So it's kind of the lesson that you're here to learn. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about your North Node?
So my North Node is in the 12th house. It's conjunct my moon, and I guess that means I was born on eclipse. We're not sure what that means, but um, it definitely means because it's in Scorpio, it means I'm supposed to dive into like the depths of spirituality with the 12th house being spirituality and Scorpio being like the depths of a matter. And that definitely has been my life focus since I was a child. I grew up very much invested in church. I would go 3 times a week and I went to ministry school. And I still am very religious, but I've been able to reconcile both my religious beliefs and astrology. Um, and I feel like they worked well together and they don't contradict each other. But I really feel like it's been a constant theme in my life to like pursue the depths of people, like a controversial issue that people are uncomfortable with. I'm drawn to those things, and I have tended to, in my immaturity, make people really uncomfortable because I'm like, I expect everyone else to feel the same way and feel just as passionate about those things as me, but not everyone has their North Node in Scorpio in the 12th house. So astrology has helped me understand that like not everybody's here to like discuss the most deep, darkest, controversial issues in life, but that's my path for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely your path. I mean, when I think of like the two deepest, darkest houses in the natal chart, it's the eighth house and the 12th house. So
Right.
that's pretty much what you get with the Scorpio North Node in the 12th house.
Right.
It's a great placement for becoming an astrologer because astrology, I consider astrology to be shown in three areas of life in the natal chart. So the eighth house, the ninth house, and the 12th house. but you're also a Sagittarius rising, right?
Yes. Yes. So I
So
got
that
all
makes
those
a lot
houses
of
covered.
sense. I feel like your soul set you up for that, basically, in
Yeah.
order to dive into astrology.
Hmm.
So I feel like you're on the right path
I
for
feel that
sure.
way too.
That's pretty cool. So my North Node is kind of similar. It's in Pisces, so Pisces rules the 12th house. However, mine is in the 7th house.
Hmm.
But actually, in my relocation chart, since I live quite far away from my birthplace, it's in the 8th house. So it's kind of the same thing for
So how do
me.
you like deal with that? Like what when you do you use your relocation chart or do you use your birth chart or do you use both? Like which one do you use more?
So I use both because, believe it or not, both apply to me. And the
Mm,
transits, when they transit my house, a different house in the chart, that basically affects both charts.
wow.
So, like, I'm a Virgo rising in my natal chart, but in my relocation chart, I'm a Leo rising.
Wow.
And anytime something transits a house, I feel it in both areas of life, which, can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what the transit is.
Right.
But it's pretty intense, and it definitely, I think, makes your life more complex when you move or when you just aren't living close to where you were born. Now, if you just move like a state over, I think it's still pretty much the same. But if you move from like the East Coast to the West Coast, then it's going to be a big difference.
Yeah, I live 20 minutes from where I was born, so same thing.
Yeah, so yours is pretty straightforward.
Mhm. Yeah,
And with the relocation chart, you start to embody it or feel it more and more the longer you live there.
that
So
makes
it's
sense.
pretty interesting. I feel like, being a Leo rising is easier than being a Virgo rising, and I'm embodying it more so now with, becoming an astrologer and being on a social media platform like TikTok. Whereas before, with my Virgo rising, that's definitely something that I would have not been comfortable doing. Due to the nature of being a Virgo rising, we're pretty shy and not so outspoken like a Leo rising would be.
Right.
So I feel like I've stepped into it more and more. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with my relocation chart. So that's definitely something you want to look at if you're thinking about moving. And if you know about astrocartography, that's key to analyze too, but you also
Mhm.
want to look at your relocation chart.
Yeah, I have a friend who just moved to a different state, and I looked at his astrocartography, and he's on his Pluto, Saturn, and Chiron line right now, and I couldn't even tell
Wow.
him because he doesn't believe in astrology.
Oh, don't you just love that?
I was like, "Oh no!" And he got there, and his car broke down, and he had to get a new car, and he like quit his job the first week he got there, and I'm like, no.
Did you warn him? Did you warn him?
No, he doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah, don't you just love that? I mean, Venus is about to go retrograde soon, and one of the biggest things with Venus retrograde is you're not supposed to make any major purchases. Well,
Mm.
just yesterday, my husband's like, we need to buy a car. And
Oh
I'm like,
no.
okay, that's fine, but we have to wait until October because Venus is in retrograde. And he just went off on how he does not believe in astrology and that that's ridiculous and all of that. And I was like, okay, okay, I'm just gonna let you learn the hard way. So
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead and buy the car during Venus retrograde, and
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
that can basically prove to you that astrology is correct
Yeah. Oh
because
my
you really aren't
goodness.
supposed to make major purchases. So I feel like for men, it's harder to accept
Hmm.
that astrology is real, basically. So they have a hard time, and I don't get it. I really don't get why they have such a hard time in believing in astrology.
I don't know if it's like an ego thing.
I
They
feel
want to
like
be in
it is an
control.
ego thing, and I think they like to be in control.
Hmm.
Astrology kind of proves that we're not in control of
Right.
life. Life is
Right.
in control of us, and I don't think they like that. So
I've never paid attention to any retrogrades yet. So it'll be interesting to live through some retrogrades and be conscious of them and everything.
well, with Venus retrograde, Venus and Mars go retrograde much less than
Hmm.
Mercury. So you do feel those more, I would say. Venus retrograde in your relationship and financially, because that's what Venus rules over. Mars retrograde is more so your energy levels, your drive, your ambition, all of that. So you definitely feel them more. I would say Mercury retrograde, not as much. I mean, even me, I'm a Virgo rising, Gemini midheaven, lots of mercurial energy. And I don't really feel Mercury retrograde. However, I also am born with a natal
Mm.
Mercury retrograde. So
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like normal for you.
it's totally normal for me. While everyone else is like having issues, I'm just like thriving
That's
during
awesome. That's
Mercury
a plus for
retrograde.
having a retrograde planet.
Yeah, there are pluses to having retrogrades in your chart, especially like the generational planets. More than likely, you've got at least one that's in retrograde because they go retrograde for so long, like half the year sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, kind of off topic, but not really because Venus is about to go retrograde, like right after the node moves into Aries. So it's like the initiation of people breaking up. And I'm just going to be straightforward
Oh,
about it, but
yeah.
that's usually what happens when
Good
Venus
thing I'm
goes retrograde
single.
is people break up. I know so many people who initiate their divorces or leave their person during Venus retrograde because retrograde makes you rethink everything.
Mm,
That's what it's for. It's there for a reason, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of reconsider. So, when it comes to Venus, it's your relationships, your love life, the way you make money, your finances, all of that. So, it really highlights that for you. And with the node moving into Aries and the South Node in Libra, it's going to be even more so that people break up because of the South Node energy being in Libra.
hmm.
So,
But I just
it's
want to
pretty interesting.
drive it home that if you have a healthy, stable relationship, you're going to be fine. But if you're better off single, then maybe you will break up.
Yeah, and not to scare anyone, I think I kind of take that for granted because I'm not scared at all. I'm pretty happy in my relationship and we have a pretty healthy one. But if you're scared or worried, don't be, because if you have a healthy relationship, trust that your relationship will not only persevere through this, but will become deeper even. Especially if your node is, or if the Aries North node is transiting your seventh or eighth house, you can definitely expect that.
Yes.
Even to meet a new partner, if your node is transiting your seventh house, or maybe even your fifth house, or the house that you have Venus in or Jupiter in. With this transit, you could definitely meet somebody that you're meant to be with if you're single.
Right.
For everyone else, especially if your North Node is in Aries, the universe is going to force you to let go of codependency. And whatever that means for you, it doesn't necessarily have to be like financial codependency, but just relying on others for validation, for
Even like
example.
friendships or
Yep.
parental relationships that are toxic.
Yeah, any relationship where you're codependent, because Libra is the seventh house, and that's what the seventh house is. It's all of your close personal relationships. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. I think it's going to be refreshing
Yeah,
because we've been in this. The Scorpio South Node was tough. I mean,
hmm,
especially for Scorpio placements.
I would
And
assume, yeah.
that's like one of my most viral posts on TikTok where I posted it during the last eclipse in Scorpio. And I kind of just gave a shout out to Scorpio placements based on the fact that they've been really going through it for the
You
last couple
know,
of years.
I
And
do
they
think we
just,
probably were going through it, but we're also just always going through it. Like we're always going through
yeah,
death, rebirth, transformation. So it's like just another Tuesday.
yeah, I know. Whereas like the average person would like buckle in their knees. The Scorpio person is just like, this is my life.
Yeah,
I mean, this is what I go through on a daily
it
basis. Like,
literally is.
I'm just chilling over here going through deaths and transformations and rebirths and the intensity. I mean, it's really crazy the resiliency that Scorpios have.
Even my dad, like he didn't have Scorpio placements, but he had an Aquarius sun in the eighth house, and that was his life. Like just constantly rebirth, transformation. But it was
Oh,
in an Aquarius
yeah,
way.
yeah, that's pretty intense. I mean, with
Mm-hmm.
the eighth house and Aquarius, or Uranus energy in the eighth house, it's like Uranus and Pluto.
Yeah,
So,
chaos.
I like Pluto and Aquarius. And those are like the two planets that affect us the most when it comes to change.
Mm,
Uranus is basically here to create sudden, chaotic, unexpected change where you need it the most. Pluto is about, transform, evolve, or die in a way. It's pretty intense.
yeah.
And both can be malefics or benefics, but I feel like overall they're more benefics. Maybe because I'm an Aquarius and I love change and I really embrace it.
Mm,
But
yeah,
for
but
like a
if you're like,
Taurus,
yeah,
for a
good luck.
Taurus person, it's been pretty tough, especially with Uranus being in Taurus,
Yeah.
still until 2025. So I feel like they're just kind of being forced to step out of that, inability to change for that the
Yeah.
Taurus infamously has. It's very
Um,
difficult.
this is a change in direction, but I just think it's interesting that going back to the North nodes, that when I first started out in astrology, the default setting on most astrology websites is Placidus. And Placidus showed my North Node in the 10th house, which I wasn't too shocked about that. But then when I decided to switch to whole signs and I saw it in the 12th house, I was like, oh no, that's 100% accurate. Like, I'm a 12th house girly.
That's how you know, too.
Mm hmm.
When people ask me which is more accurate, whole sign or Placidus, I always say whole sign, but I could usually not truly explain why it's more accurate. So I'm just like, well, test it out. Usually the North Node is the giveaway. If it falls into a different area of life, you'll know. If that area of life has been like a major issue for you your entire life or a huge focus, that's how you know which system is more accurate. And
Right.
that's how I figured it out too with the whole signs, because most beginners in astrology use Placidus since that's the default. It's literally the default on every website. So you don't know any better. So you just
Right.
think that that's the accurate one.
Right. Because
But yeah, the
we
North,
we do modern astrology. Like, we're all about the modern version of astrology, but whole signs is the oldest system. So I thought it has to be new and it has to be the default system for a reason. So I just was like, sure, I guess this is the way to go. But it completely changed my chart because my ascendant is at the 29th degree, meaning if I was born like a minute later, I would have been a Capricorn rising. So it changed my placements by 2 houses. So some people, when they have a smaller degree ascendant, I feel like it might not change their placements too much, so might not be able to tell the difference. But for someone like me, I have a completely different chart, like it's totally different, so I can definitely tell which one it resonates way more with me. And another thing, when you're deciding on which house system, we're dogmatically whole signs, but when you're deciding for yourself, another thing to look at is the chart ruler. So I'm a Sagittarius rising, so Jupiter rules my chart. And it made way more sense for me to have my Jupiter in the first house than where it was previously.
yeah, and both Chase and I have a very Aquarian way of thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
you have Aquarius in your third house,
Mm-hmm.
and I have Mercury in Aquarius. So Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So it's all about preserving what works,
Yeah.
whatever still works from traditional astrology, and Uranus is the modern astrology aspect. And I really feel like that's kind of how knowledge works. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're always learning more and we're always developing new strategies and different views and different ways of looking at things. Uranus. So it really, like I said, I've talked about this before. It baffles me how they adhere to their old system with traditional astrologers, and they really just think modern astrology is like an embellished version
Right.
of traditional astrology and that none of it is accurate.
It's just weird to me that a lot of times we'll hear traditional astrologers be like, yeah, this is the old version, so it's the best version. And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like
Yeah,
we've learned more.
it
Like,
does not work that way. I mean, look at technology, for
right,
example. Like, obviously, the first phone ever invented is not going to work as well as like a modern phone. So,
right.
I don't know. To me, it's common sense,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't get their perspective. And, I still respect it. what you do you, but
Yeah,
modern
I
astrology all
love
the way.
a Hellenistic astrologer. She has a podcast called Moon Matters. I subscribe to her Spotify. I am her patron. I love her. I learn so much from her, but I prefer modern astrology.
Yeah, and don't even get me started on the generational planets.
Right,
I
right, right.
mean, Pluto,
Yeah.
just Pluto. That's all
Yeah.
that's all we have to say.
Yeah.
Pluto is so intense and impossible to ignore. So,
Right, right, right.
um, yeah. But anyways, kind of off topic. So
Mhm.
let's get back to the North Node. I
Yes.
recommend a book. It's called Astrology for the Soul. I talk about it all the time on TikTok. It's by Jan Spiller. We're not affiliated with her or anything like that, but it's very straightforward as far as telling you what you're meant to embody with your North Node.
Mhm.
So the more you embrace that and embody that, the easier your life gets because you come into alignment with what your soul wants. So I'd like to put that out there, especially for people who can't afford astrology readings or, don't want to get an astrology reading for whatever reason. That book gets straight to the point, I would say.
Mhm.
But what's your take on the North Node? Do you think it's the most important thing in the natal chart, or do you think that something else is more important than your North Node?
No, I don't. I think that it is one of the most important parts. Maybe the most important. It's definitely up there for sure. It kind of like ties your whole chart together, so it makes the whole chart make sense when you look at your north node and then you try to interpret the rest of your chart. It all seems to connect back to the north node. Um, I do
Yeah,
think it's really important.
the way I see it is I feel like this is my theory
Hmm.
though. The North Node is kind of why you have the other placements. I
Right,
feel like you
right.
need to be born with those energies, like this sun sign and this moon sign, and the aspects that you have, because it's all part of the master plan, which is getting you to your North Node or getting you to embody your North Node. And I do so many astrology readings, and one thing I've observed is that there are people who have achieved their North Node either unknowingly or knowingly, but they're fully embodying it with no issues. And then there are other people who are so stuck in their South Node that you could just tell they are not going to achieve their North Node in this lifetime. So I feel like it takes many lifetimes to achieve your North Node because of the powerful, seduction of the South Node.
Right.
It's where you're so comfortable and you've done that for so many lifetimes. So it's like very difficult for
Yeah.
you to go towards your North Node.
And since I view astrology through more of like a biblical lens, I don't view it as like a multiple lifetime thing. I believe in one lifetime, but I do still kind of view it in the same way. Like you come in with this energy that you need to move away from and that you're overdeveloped in. So there's multiple
Well,
ways of
even
looking at it.
biblically, I mean, if like you're cast out of heaven, it's usually because you did something wrong. I don't know.
Right,
Like I can't even view it biblically.
right, right.
Although, the whole controversial thing too is that the birth of Jesus was predicted by a star.
It
So there were
was.
astrologers back then.
And they were like on God's side in that scenario.
Yeah, otherwise, why would they clearly state it that way? So,
Yeah.
plus, I don't even think it actually says in specific in the Bible that astrology is evil.
Um, I wouldn't say it does either, but it kind of in like Daniel, they talk about astrologers and in the way they kind of say it, you kind of think of them as the bad guys in the story, but I don't really think of them as the bad guys in the story anymore. They're just not the good guys either, but that doesn't
Yeah,
mean
well,
astrology is
I know.
bad.
Don't they like say divination is bad, basically?
Like talking to dead people.
Or just, divination is in like speculating like the future and stuff, or like
Prophecy
for
is like a
future
big
healing.
thing in the Bible. Like basically, prophecy means like God speaks to a person and then they speak it out. So I wouldn't say that that's bad. If I don't know the correct definition, but from what you're saying,
Yeah, or like fortune telling, I
yeah, I
think.
would say yeah. I mean, it just depends. I don't do fortune telling, but
Yeah, but I feel like that's what people think astrology is, especially like
yes, they tie it
religious
all
people.
together. Like whenever I bring up astrology, people will be like, "Oh yeah, I went to a psychic," and I don't go to psychics. And so, or they talk about like charging their crystals under the moonlight, and that's not something I do. So I don't do those things. And if you do, that's fine. And a lot of astrologers do those things, but I don't do those things. And it's not, you don't have to do those things to believe in astrology.
I do not do those things either. That's so
Right.
funny. I don't think we've ever had this conversation actually,
Yeah.
but I'm not into that. I when people like tell me that I'm a psychic, I make it pretty clear I am not psychic. I'm reading your astrology chart based on a deep understanding of the knowledge of astrology.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
very logical. It's very much kind of, right brained, and you don't really use so much of your, yeah. I mean, it's very much left brained. That's what rules your logical side, basically.
Hmm.
So I am using some intuition, but not like enough to be labeled as a psychic, that's for
No,
sure.
yeah.
And
I
that's
just
not
want to
something
read
that
the
I even,
stars.
yeah, and I don't do the crystals thing.
No, me
Um,
either.
I used to have crystals, and now they all creep me out. So I'm just like, I do not do the crystal thing.
Yeah, I think there's got to be some truth to it, but when I look into it, they're like this stone brings you into touch with your spirit guide. I'm like, I don't want a spirit guide.
Yeah,
So I think there's
get away from
probably some
like,
truth to the crystal thing, but I need more information that doesn't involve spirit guides.
or like your ancestors. Like, what makes you think your ancestors are even good people?
They could
If
be
they're
bad
like
people.
earthbound spirits, like, do you really want the help of your ancestors? I mean, I don't know about that. That's like a different perspective that people don't talk about in the spiritual community is,
Right.
what if you're actually communicating with like evil spirits? Like, how would you even know?
In disguise or something. Yeah, I'm not
No, thank
interested.
you.
I'm not
I'll stick to
interested. More
astrology.
power to you.
I'll stick to the science, and no thank you. Like, get away from me.
It just makes me uncomfortable.
It creeps me out for
It
sure.
does, yeah.
I get scared. I mean, I'm very sensitive to even watching scary movies, so,
Yeah.
or anything with like demonic possessions and stuff like that. No, thank you.
I'm
I mean,
I'm
yeah,
wildly uncomfortable with that.
it's terrifying because I feel like on some level we know that, demons are real, or like
Hmm.
lower vibrational energies or earthbound entities, whatever you want to call it,
Right, right, right.
are here and they could harm us if they wanted to, or if we allowed them to, if we're not protected or whatever. So yeah, I don't mess with that. I don't fuck with that. Like,
I
no,
don't
thank
fuck with
you.
that either. All right, that's a weird place to end, but this is where we're wrapping it up.
Yep. So stay tuned for our next episode, wherever the winds take us. I
Yeah,
don't
let us
know
know
what
if
we're
you have
going to
any
talk about.
suggestions and join the
Yeah.
Discord.
Yeah, let us know in the Discord if you have any suggestions for our next topic. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.